Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Studebaker. I'm Blair Thomas, the director of the Puppet Festival, and I'm here with... Good morning. I'm here with my colleague, Paulette Richards. Paulette and I coordinate the symposium panels here, and we have an excellent, robust panel of artists that have been performing this week and will continue performing today and tomorrow. Paulette is an independent researcher and puppet artist, and she had been the co-curator of the Living Objects African American Puppetry exhibit at the University of Connecticut. And she has been working as the co-director of the symposium for many years now. I think that we're in our 5th year together. But she's also the author of the book Object Performance in the Black Atlantic. And so without further ado, I will pass the morning over to Paulette.
Good morning. Thank you for coming out. Apologies for our delayed start. I twisted my ankle in the shower, and so that created some confusion. And then we have a large group. So that adds to the mix. The way that we're going to work today is, since we have such a large group, first we will have the panelists come down the line and introduce themselves. And then we have 3 questions that we will pose to them in series and come down the line to hear their answers. So without further ado, let's start on the far end. Please say your name, what company and show you're with, and anything else that may be of interest to the audience. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. We are Unterwasser Company from Italy, and we are performing here the show Untold. We are a company that's been going, we are together since 10 years, and we are a visual theater company. We do puppet theater, and we like to go in between visual theater and the contemporary art. We have 5 shows that tour worldwide, and something else.
What are your names?
Yeah. I'm Giulia Decanio.
Valeria Bianchi.
Aurora Buzzetti.
Okay, and that's it.
Thank you. Next.
Hello. Hello. Can you hear me if I play like this? He's the musician of the company. Hello, my name is Paula Riquelme. I'm the director of Maraña. I'm the person in charge of the scenography, the installation, so the knitting work, and the choreographies, and also the costumes. And my background is more circus. We're coming from circus, and we are just starting to go more in the puppet direction, because the people who work with puppet thinks that our puppet is our scenography. It's the scenography who became alive, and it's not only the puppet. So we are, I like the idea. It sounds good, and yes, we are. This is the reason why we are here.
Hello, I'm Andres Aravena. I'm the musician of the company. I make the composing, the production, and the live performance of music. And well, my mission is to give the emotion and the mood to every part. And in my background, I'm a percussionist, I'm a multi-instrumentist, and also I'm a DJ and I'm an electronic music producer. Yes.
Hi, I'm Luca. I'm a more suited for the visual art, which means technical direction, light control. I'm usually talking to the technical directors of festivals, theaters, so on. And I'm also a trust builder now. And that's it, yeah.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is Yael Rasooly, and I'm a theater director, puppeteer, singer, you know, like all of us, doing a lot of things. Here presenting 2 shows, Edith and Me, and The House by the Lake, and this is my 3rd, 4th time in this amazing festival. I'm so happy to be here. And I'm also a teacher. I teach in many puppetry academies, and an activist for rights of children and women. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Anthony Michael Stokes. I'm here for the first time at the festival with my show, The Scarecrow. I'm an educator, a teaching artist, a musician, an actor, all the things, you know. And for The Scarecrow, I actually directed it. I did most of the puppet design. I produced and created the music. It's a puppet musical. And kind of all of the above, yes. You know, I really love with the work I try to do is to really kind of enlighten and really make sure there's like a clear perspective, a shift in perspective based on the work that I do, but there's always an educational component to it, and just really making sure to utilize puppetry, music, and acting at the same time in the storytelling.
Good morning, I'm Laura Foote, the adapter and director of The Life and Times of Michael Kay. I also run the Baxter Theatre in Cape Town. And this was initially a Baxter Handspring production, which was commissioned to me from the Theater der Welt Festival and the Düsseldorf Schauspielhaus. And we're very happy to be here. Thank you.
So we have an illustrious crew of artists, and as you know, the theme for this year's symposium series is puppet dramaturgy, specifically puppet doing and being. In this panel, we are looking at sound and words, and how that impacts the storytelling with performing objects. So the first question is, do the puppets speak in your show? Why or why not?
Okay. No, the puppets don't speak in our shows.
Why not?
Because we believe that we like to seek for a silent theater that can be understood worldwide. So if the words are not necessary, we prefer not to put them inside. In some shows, there are some spoken words that don't come from puppets, but they are really a few.
Thank you. Next.
Yes, in our show there is a moment the scenography is talking, but it's more like sounds. And they are not really talking, it's just that you feel that all these holes are getting alive. And for me, I'm more a person of always yes and not so much no. So every time when the people ask me like why, my fair answer is always why not? You know, like, and I'm always tried. I never wanted to really speak. This was not my idea because in the company we speak like different languages. We are coming from different countries. And it's a disaster sometimes. We are in a meeting and 2 of them are talking in German, the other in Spanish, the other in Italian, and it's a chaos total. So from the beginning I thought we will not talk in the show or will be the same chaos. So just little sounds that became like a new language for us, and that's enough.
Thank you. in my production, there's been a development. It's only in the last few years that the puppets are opening their mouth and speaking. And before that, I think I always use words, but like another level, like you mentioned, like something more like scenography way, or working a lot with voiceover technique. But then again, there are always words, and because the work tours so much internationally, it's always very interesting how to approach that. Some shows, like The House by the Lake we played here, it's in 4 languages at the same time. And other shows, maybe they have words like during the whole show, but they're so visual that, you know, in different countries, people can still really get it and feel it. So, yeah, quite the subject, yes, thank you.
So for my show, The Scarecrow, yes, because the puppets, there are these like hybrid hand puppet, moving mouth, bunraku puppets. They're like life size. So we're basically carrying around these like full bodies the entire time, but also doing, you know, a live hand puppetry at the same time, moving the mouth. And the puppets speaking in the show, it's necessary because the kind of story we're telling and the kinds of characters that exist in this world. In The Scarecrow, I really wanted to explore various themes of racism, justice, self-identity, fantasy, representation, activism. And I knew that the words would be important to the theme, and that the puppets and the characters that would be bringing those words, I knew that those words gonna be important to those characters bringing those words to life. And there's a specific duality in our show with the characters, the person and the puppet. It's very specific, and later in the show you see that puppet character that person is really another version of that puppet character at one point. And so that was also really important in like the words that we used in those 2 worlds.
Thank you. Our puppets do speak a lot. They're wooden sculptures, so their mouths don't move. But Adrian from Handspring Puppet Company creates this beautiful figure which, depending on where or how the light shines on the figure, it can express emotion beautifully. And I based the production on a novel by James Coetzee, and he's a Nobel laureate, and his writing is very, very dense and philosophical. And I wanted to stay true to the novel, follow Michael's journey through a war-torn South Africa. And so for me, there was a question about how much of the story do the puppets speak, and how much do I give to the narrators, the actor narrators, and how much text can a puppet hold? How long can a monologue be, for instance? And so sometimes, well, twice in fact, the actor breaks away from the puppet and expresses thoughts and feelings in a monologue. And all of the dialogue is played by the puppets, and again, some of the monologues. So it's very dense, and I have a theater writer background, so it made sense for me to choose such a novel.
Thank you. Next question, which some of you kind of answered already, but I'll ask it anyway. Do the puppets make sounds that are not speech? And what do those sounds add to their animation and the story? So I'm not just talking about kind of the made-up language that Unterwasser mentioned, but it could be a sound that the puppet's body makes, like if it's wood and the parts clack together. And so what does that level of sound add to the storytelling?
Actually, I forgot to say that's also some of our puppets, like they don't speak, they speak Gramlo, they speak like something that is not a language, but it's sounds that mean something. About the
For sure, our characters are sometimes made of wood or paper, and that sounds they are in the shows. I think we never thought about this aspect, but yeah, for sure. They mean something. I think in a way that we, while we didn't think about it, but in the way we move them, the rhythm, and yeah, the way the sound of fabric and wood, they come together. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, in our case, kind of the whole scenography is the puppet, and also the performers. They play the role of the puppet. And they do sounds, and they set up the mood of every moment. Also, it's till now, a lot of the sounds of the performers are a cappella. So also this transmit a biological component that is what it is. And also they are, we recorded the sounds. So there's also, there's a game, like a ping pong between the sounds of the performers and the music. We recorded them, and then we transformed the sound, so then it's this call and answer, and like this response also, and reaction. Yes.
First of all, I would say the voice, like the singing voice. So I find that there is such an intense meeting point, and like a truth that is also spoken through the singing voice. Doesn't necessarily mean, you know, having a great voice or a good voice, but just finding like it's the breath, first of all, and it's very interesting the discovery of the voice of the puppet or the puppets, and I tend to explore. Experiment with different kinds of music in the production process, even if the music doesn't end up in the production itself, but to be able to understand the character more. Sometimes it's really a description of the character that I'm like, okay, this puppet is like Bach, you know, and it moves the best when there is, and that's how I find the movement of the puppet, and then, you know, the music can leave, but it's already instilled in the character.
So it's a musical, so ditto to everything that she said. That was fabulous. And also, so, you know, the voice for our show is huge. It's a huge for the piece. But the puppets themselves, I tend to work as a puppetry artist, as kind of like a scrap artist. I love to find like tactile things that have different textures and can make different sounds, so that when creating like that sympathetic movement, it also kind of breathes life into the character in a different way. And we have a few characters that are, it's based off, you know, Wizard of Oz lore, but they're characters that are not really, that we kind of don't know unless you're really like a super fan of the Wizard of Oz characters and all the different books. So we have a character called the Sawhorse, who's supposed to be, you know, a sawhorse that's come to life, but he really looks like kind of a junk pile come to life. And so the idea is when you see him moving, there's a certain sound that comes from the materials he's kind of based off. And so he's supposed to be wood, but we use cardboard because it's much easier to work with. The Scarecrow himself is based, the puppet has continued to evolve and evolve as the show has evolved, and I figured out how to make the mechanics of it work. And the idea of like wind and the Scarecrow hanging there Going with the wind is one of the themes of the show. And so the materials he's made out of are very, I get them from anywhere I can, but different kinds of straw, different kinds of things. So it's a physical, no matter how he's moving, there's a physical sound every time he moves, and it allows him to kind of take up space in an existing way for people to experience him and feel like, oh, he's real. And then lastly, breath is hugely important in our show, and there's a recurring breath pattern, and it's very connected to kind of the I Can't Breathe, Black Lives Matter movement, and again, connected to, if someone's being lynched, they can't breathe. And so that's a continuous thing throughout the show, and we use it as a company as well, which is great because it kind of helps us kind of center in as a group. And but it's throughout, it's recurring, and it kind of reaffirms what the story is about at the end of that. Okay.
Yes, well, we have, as I said, a lot of dialogue, and then naturalistic sounds attached to that. So breathing or panting, crying. And then we have a film element, and again, a big soundscape right through the play. So be it the sound of water, or wind, or footsteps. Very much like the score of a film, right the way through the play, and a composition by Kyle Shepard, emotional and emotive music, also expressing not only the emotional landscape, but the landscape itself through which Michael walks. So sound all the way through from the beginning. When I first adapted it, I had already spoken to the composer, and it was for me a big element of the odyssey of Michael.
All right, thank you. So once again, some of the answers have anticipated the third question, but I'll ask it anyway. Is there music in your show, and what does it add to the story? Would the same type of music and soundscape be appropriate if you were telling this story with live actors rather than puppets? We got it? Should I repeat? Okay. Or we can break it down. Okay. Is there music in your show, and what does it add to the story? Let's start with that. Is there music in the show,
Yes,
and what does it add to the
definitely.
story?
Yes, there is music in our shows. We didn't tell before, but it's a fundamental part of our shows. In the construction and creation of the show, the dramaturgy, and puppet construction, set design, and soundscape all go together. And
also usually the music and the soundscape is just, it's like one track. So it's fundamental also because we let it go, and then we follow it like as we were dancing throughout all the show. So everything that we don't say with words is said by the music, the soundscape, and the images of the show.
And silence sometimes.
And the silence, yes. You want to repeat the second part of the question?
Oh, I was going to let everybody.
Okay.
I was going to let everybody take the first part, and then we'll take the second part.
Okay. For me as a director, I cannot create without music. Really, like I never write. And all the time my ideas when I work with a team is making playlist. So my ideas is always because of more or less this kind of music, you know. And with Andy, who is the musician, it was super hard in the beginning because he was giving me some ideas and I was like, no, this is like air and I'm talking about water. And he was like, what are you talking about? You know, like, no, you are giving me bubbles and I'm talking about little bubbles. I want little bubbles, not bubbles, you know. And like, and when we are talking about sound, it's like it really, we needed to create a new language between us. You know, it's like I want water, but do you know when the water is inside of a metal? And he was like, yeah, I want that, you know. And so like we start with different sounds and we get a language and then after to make music with this, you know. But it was super hard to really talk about the same language because he was saying to me like, this is the beam. And I was like, what is the bam? Boom. Like I didn't know about music language and he didn't know about more my language. So it took time to really be together between sound and music and arrive to something good, you know. But also like I never start like nothing without music. Like we are together and there is already like I wait until the last moment. He's super stressed preparing because he have a huge set with all the instruments and I'm waiting until he's ready. Otherwise I'm not starting the rehearsal, not even the stretching part. It's like everything for me is with music. It's like our physical way to transmit something. And for me, it's also like our art or art in general is all the things that we cannot explain with words. It's super strange for me when the people want that I explain everything because I create something that I cannot explain and now everyone wants to know what we are doing and why. And I don't know why, you know. I just did because it was coming from inside and now I need to put name to everything, you know. But really usually it's just because of music. Just because of music, it's like the flow and I'm trying to have the way to express what I'm feeling with the music. Something like this.
Well, I would like to also add that in our case also we have different textures of the music. Some things are prepared from before, some things are live instruments, and are kind of not so conventional or not so academic instruments. We use live percussions like djembe or balafon, and also some shakers and other things. And then we have the electronic part. So also this contrast creates this mixture that is, it's like an organism. And not just because it's biological, because also if you consider then, because it's crochet and wool it's an organic thing. A lot of the wool is synthetic, but there's also this organic part. So then, and the music kind of set up the mood, but also the performance set the mood of the music. So we have this dialogue always. And it's also always changing. We don't have like a totally fixed way to do it. Yes.
So for me, really music and sound, they're really mixed together, is everything. So it's really the base. Like I often think that the music and the soundtrack for me is the dramaturge. And so I really have to listen. And since I am originally a musician, I used to be a classical pianist and then a classical singer, and then I escaped from that world. But still, I'm very much always a musician. So I think it's key. Also, I have wanted to collaborate with musicians, classical musicians or other kind of musicians, like at the highest level, and which is always kind of a struggle because I think that us puppeteers, you know, we have a lot of patience to be lost for a long time and searching and experimenting. And sometimes you collaborate with people that come into a room and they need the notes and then they play and then they can rehearse that. So, so breaking these boundaries, and maybe I'll just give an example, an amazing example with a collaborator I had, a classical pianist, Amit Dolberg, really like the highest level you can find, plays at Carnegie Hall. And I told him, well, would you like to collaborate with me on this show and be with me on stage? It's a show dealing with a sexual assault of a child. And I showed him the first 20 minutes of the show with kind of other kind of recorded music. And then he said, wait, do it again. And then he played Beethoven Sonata, and things fit perfectly. Like to every frame, every second, it was made for it. And that moment has happened to me many times in my career. It's a magic moment that, you know, it's like really meant, it's matchmaking between the action and the sound. Thank you.
Well, yes, we know that my show has music because it's a musical. You know, it's integral to the story that I'm telling. Much of the intention of the show was to infuse and reimagine this Oz with African and African-American culture, and from the characters and the performers to the costumes, the hairstyles, to the main plot, and to, of course, the music. It's important. Music is important to, like, all of our cultures, you know? And within specifically, like, the African-American culture, it's central to, like, inspiration, celebration, exploration, love, loss, and survival. And those specific things are things that are themes that we, like, explore in the Scarecrow. And so it's through those musical numbers and the soundscape, I will say. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention my assistant director who did a lot of the soundscape for the show. There's something very cinematic about the way the Scarecrow works with projections and with trying to make sure we're, like, sure that people don't get lost in the story, because we kind of go back and forth. It's both a prequel and a sequel in a way. And so making sure that, you know, we didn't get lost in the storytelling, the soundscape is really helping, we're finding, to really connect that storyline so that it's clear for the audience to follow us on that journey. And so, what was I gonna say? Oh, yes. And so I'll say also about the music, specifically for creating it for this, hearing her talk about that moment of, like, connection with another artist and that magic, I'm like, okay, bring it on, I want more of that. Because I started this process off and it wasn't really a musical, even though that's, like, a lot of my background as a performer. And as we got to go through different processes, I got to do a residency at the O'Neill, and the lovely Cheryl Henson was there, and I had, like, a song written, and like, I was using Motherless Child, but producing kind of my own track. And she's like, oh, it's a puppet musical. And I go, oh, well, you're putting that pressure on it now. So now I have to deliver. And, you know, so in those, like, 2 years, I've written, like, 5 songs. But it came, I originally wanted it to be me utilizing I was trying to make it easy on myself, because I was like, it's a puppet show, I'm just gonna do try this thing out and see how this works. And so I decided to utilize existing songs in public domain and cover and reinterpret them. And so some of that did stay in the show, like Motherless Child, but in trying to secure rights for songs like Strange Fruit, which was used in my original proposals for this piece, it became easier to me in my crazy head to just, like, purchase beats and tracks and rearrange and produce it myself as a zennial, as a millennial. So that's what I did. Yeah.
I think puppetry productions lend themselves to music in the same way that the puppeteer or actors can imbue the puppet with life. Or they have to do that, they do that. The puppet can also hold music, and that adds to the life of the puppet. So the emotional landscape, as I said, in Michael K. is vast. and so are the effects. So for instance, when Michael Caine is drowning the goat, I'm not sure who's seen the production, then we have effects of the sound of swimming, and then we have effects of Michael Caine going underwater. Again, very cinematic. I'll also answer the second part of the question, so we don't have to come back to me. And the second part was, you know, would we do, if we didn't have puppets in the show, would we use music in the same way? And I'd say for stage work, I probably wouldn't, because the music could be seen as too sentimental, too big a sound. But with puppetry, it felt appropriate. Again, because of the cinema element. And the composer, right from the beginning, we had a lot of development and conversation, and then he was also in the room during rehearsals. So it was beautifully, beautiful synergy. And I guess that's what everyone's saying. You have to work very closely with the composer. You can't put the music on afterwards. That has to be integral. And it's a joy to be able to do that.
Okay, thank you. So you made the bridge to the second half of the question, which we will take up. And that is, would the same type of music and soundscape be appropriate if you were telling this story with live actors rather than puppets?
Okay. This is a very difficult question for us because
It's impossible to imagine our shows. I think it's impossible to imagine our shows with actors because we have 5 shows that are different between one to the other. The first we did was 10 years ago, and that was the most puppet show that we have with puppets, really tridimensional puppets, but it's multimedia. And in that show, there's also a small part of shadows. And from there, we started to explore the shadow world. And so the other 3 shows, they are different, but they are research. They are in the path of research in the shadow world. And so it's difficult to imagine. We are on stage, so we are actors in one way, but in a really different way. All the work we create is projection and is in the relation between the projections of objects and the objects, because everything is shown. And I don't think it's possible to feel.
Maybe if instead of producing shows, I don't know, produced a movie, maybe it wouldn't be possible to substitute the puppetry with with actors, live actors, and at that point, maybe the same.
Similar to a movie that, like cinematic. Our work in shadows is more similar to cinema, that like actors' theater.
And if it was a movie, in some cases, yes, it could be.
Like a silent movie.
Like a silent movie with music, yes.
For me, it's strange because I always work covering the faces, because I tried to go far away of human emotions, and like I always try to don't connect the music and sound with the human feelings. I'm trying to be in the middle, but not in the sad moment, the violin and the piano, you know, like I'm always trying to go there. And so I always, also with the team, I try that every time that they are playing, they are not human anymore. So this is my task, try to go away of the human and human feelings and human question and answering, and, you know, like a little bit more abstract.
Yeah, I think I feel all of us are like humans? Actors? Why? We have puppets. That's the... yeah, it's really, I mean, it adds so many layers. So, you know, in that meeting point of the puppet and the action and the music, what it can tell you, I mean, for me, it's always interesting, like the inner world, and then the inner world, and then how many layers can you have in that? And also, like, is it between reality and fantasy, for example? Or is it between, like, the present moment and, like, the trauma, the memory, survivor's guilt? How do these, like, but you know, there is no, we can transcend the human body, and we can also spread out and open all, because, you know, we all know this feeling of having one emotion, even really powerful, but then the next moment we can have a completely other emotion, or we can be present in one situation, but our minds are in somewhere completely different. And so I think this medium just gives us that opportunity for complexity and duplexity, and non-linear movements, and like being in pieces and then becoming whole and then breaking again. Thanks.
I'm inspired by this all. It's so amazing. Yes, in the Scarecrow, it's interesting because to this question I go, both things can be true, and in the Scarecrow they are. There's a specific duality to the show of the puppet character and the human performer, even in the way they're dressed, even in the way that they're almost mirrors of each other, or shadows of the puppet character. And then at some point in the show, there's a shift, and there's a whole section of the show that we don't use the main puppet characters, and we are just acting in the show as humans. And then, you know, we come back to it later. And so it really, to the kind of storytelling that I'm doing in the Scarecrow, which is really, the story is, I'm answering the question that maybe no one asked, is how did he come to be hanging there in the cornfield before Dorothy found him? And so that's the journey we go on. And so the representation of, like, who he was and who are these other characters that we meet, and then who they've become, how they transform, is all kind of connected to the human puppeteer and performer and the puppet character themselves throughout the show. And playing with the idea of, like, you know, puppetry in itself is often multitasking, right? We're multitasking as artists, doing it on stage. It's a lot of things are going on. And with this piece, I'm really just pushing the multitasking even further with that. And so using the idea of, like, what is a puppet? Anything can be a puppet. So let's use these creatures and these characters that we've created as puppets, but then also, well, let's use ourselves as puppets as well. And how do we do that? And make sure that that's connected specifically to the storytelling and, like, the sound. And so when we're not using words and we're not singing, or using the puppets, we're using shadow puppetry and fully giving those silhouette moments and acting through shadow puppetry throughout the show to give a different perspective and a different way of utilizing the art form. Yeah.
Did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to add one thing, how important the audience is in the creativity and interpretation of the puppet, because you imbuing your own feeling onto the context of the story. So when Michael hears his mother has passed away, his face doesn't change, but the music changes, and the way that the audience sees that puppet, imbuing it with their own emotion or life experience, contributes a great deal.
Great, thank you. So we got through my questions, and you all did bring some media files. So what I'd like to do is give each company up to 7 minutes to walk through whatever media files you have sent me, so that we can give the audience a taste of what we've been talking about. So let's start with Unterwasser. And you all sent, what did you all send me? Here. This? You want to play the video? Okay, I'm going to go to YouTube and blow it up. Oh, okay. It wants to be like that. All right. Is there sound? Yeah, there is sound. Okay. Is the sound coming through? Unmute myself. I'm not muted. Okay. Still no sound. Yeah, where is this?
No.
No one seems to know this, but
Can
Amazon...
I use the computer a second? Thank you. Okay, so this was, I'm sorry for this video right now. This, sì, però, lo so. This trailer was the trailer of the show we are doing now, here. And do you want me to put another one so we can see? Or do you need to see it again? Yes, please, okay. Yeah, and full screen, okay. Sorry. Come on. Okay. This way is easy. We don't have to act. I did something I shouldn't. What? The Google button, yeah. Okay, sorry. Okay. I fucked it up.
Okay, I have to get back.
Yeah. Okay.
You
we
had
will-
something else, or you just want to talk about that clip?
we can talk about this.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, so, this is the show we brought here, and this story, in this show we tell 3 stories, but the way it's difficult in English for me, sorry. Vabbè, direttamente comunque il modo in cui sono intrecciate le storie, cioè non importa se non ci fossilizziamo sulle storie in sé.
È un viaggio interno.
Okay, it's an internal journey of, it's 3 different internal journeys that are mixed together to show how people, all the people, sink into their like,
They are like stuck in...
sometimes get stuck into their selves, and each one has his own way to get stuck. Somebody gets angry. Somebody, and we give metaphors to these emotions, visual metaphors.
Starting from ourselves.
Yes, and the end of the show is not so negative, but we don't want to spoil it up, so please come and see. And so we use ourselves in shadow, and we also use puppets, which are wire sculptures and objects and drawing and paper mache, yeah. Paper mache, yeah, people like that there. And every time the set changes, because it's like there is an empty space, and we create every time the scenario for the images. Yes.
And just the objects that are essential are on stage, and every time we bring them out. So every time we create a new space, and every time is an empty space again, to make new space for other things. And there are 3 big screens that are like a room, like a sort of room. And at the beginning, this travel starts from the top of from the sky, and arrive all like closer to this to the people. So is really a travel from far, and then arrive to the earth, and then arrive to the rooms, to a building, then to rooms, and then inside ourselves.
And we talked about the cinema before because we use the lights as cameras. So we use very little small lights that we can move. So the movement of the light towards the object creates a camera movement on the scene.
And also, we don't use, as you see, we don't use silhouette, like bidimensional, but we're just a few, but yes, just a few. But we like to explore the possibility that the 3-dimensional objects have in the projection. So you can have a sort of 3-dimensional shadow that is really different from the traditional theater, shadow theater.
Yes.
now we are sorry, we have to go because we have to get prepared for the show, which is at 1. Thank you very much. Thank you. It was a pleasure to be part of this symposium. Bye-bye.
Hi. I will go over there and explain a bit our show. So, because we are trying to create a puppet that is huge, and normally always depends from the space that they invite us or they give us, we try to cover the room or whatever and with the whole puppet, so the audience can be very close to the puppet and experience this immersive experience with emotions, music, lights, and so on. So that's why our performance is usually very colorful. So if you are experiencing a gray weather, that's the place to go. It's also very loud, because music also, there's 3 elements. Basically, there's the actors, the puppet itself, actually 4, and there's also the sound, that it's also loud, and also the lights. Because the wool, as we have it, reacts really, really beautifully with the colors. So you can, when you, especially me as a light composer or designer or whatever, or technician, it's really funny because if I change from red to blue or to green or to pink, it's always a different landscape. So especially the best, if you're gonna see the show, you're gonna see like a lot of colors. It's very contrasty and movement and depth and so on. And then in one moment we just make red. And the red makes the scene very flat, which is like, it's like a black and white, because the wool doesn't react so hardly. And then also, because we have bodies and skin color, it's also beautiful in a sense. And yeah, I really encourage you, if you have time today, come to see the show, because it's really hard to explain. You really have to, it's at 4, and it's not far from here. It's really hard to explain it. You just have to come and you just get this like positivity, inspiration, happiness. Yeah, just forget about your problems and whatever, you know. So just come and see the show and yeah, just give us a nice applause. That's it.
Maybe I'll also come over, Paulette. Can you open your email? Yes. Yeah, this one. Yeah, I'm going to share you.
Squarespace's creative tools
Sorry about
let
that.
you design a unique.
So I'm going to show you the trailer of like a minute and a half of this creation, Silence Makes Perfect. So some of you may have seen or will see Edith and Me, which is the 3rd part in my trilogy on violence towards women and children. And this is the 2nd part of the trilogy with Amit Dolberg, the pianist and musical director I told you about. So. Thanks.
How long?
Okay.
How long did it last? How long before you realized? Are you afraid? Yes. Are you ready to begin?
Thank you. And if I can get back to your email, just a second. Yes. So this was really I'm going to open this on this one. So, wait, where's my slideshow? Slideshow, yes. I think I showed this piece also because it's a piece I have not presented in the festival, so you can see like another completely different style than what you've seen here, and really what it's like to have a collaboration, like to have a creation that comes out of such an inspiring collaboration between artists. I always think like, you know, a project is also kind of my excuse to spend time with people I admire and appreciate. So in this case, we were really trying to also, like, through the design of the masks, as we were kind of trying to figure them out, then it was very much influenced by the different musical pieces. And also we designed the masks so you could, like this mask distorts my voice and creates a very kind of like huge echo. And since this show, you know, is about violence and then the repercussions of it and what violence and trauma does sometimes, that it kind of, we wanted to create this effect of when you're distanced from the world and you kind of go into your own inner place, and that loneliness, but then also the rage that comes, and then also because the whole path began with I'm playing a character that's this child that's completely mute. It's all voiceover, and she has no voice. And then and then until the end, when I'm singing a Lana Del Rey song, and she becomes, the character becomes this rock singer, and she has her voice back, and also like just the transformation of the voice itself through the show tells another layer of the story. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm going to let the work speak for itself for the most part. I talked a lot about the story kind of throughout my explanations and answers to the questions. So now you just kind of get to see some of just kind of see it in action. And I'm just going to start off with, oh, you already had it up for me. I'm silly. Okay. Is that as big as it gets, or do we? Oh, maybe this. There we go. So this was kind of a commercial we kind of created to get people interested in the show and to let them know it has this huge connection. So I'm here now I'm originally from El Paso, Texas, but I've actually just recently transplanted to here in Chicago. So, you know, hey, so there'll be more work to come, hopefully. But this show, I didn't know at the moment that happened, I didn't realize how much connection it actually has to Chicago. So this was a way to show that the history that we were going to be sharing and revisiting had a huge connection to these real people that existed. So I'm just going to let you watch that, and then we'll continue.
How did he come to be hanging there in that cornfield?
before Dorothy found him.
Men and women of America, are you proud of the record which the Anglo-Saxon race has made for itself? Your science seems to say that you are.
Okay, so that kind of gives you a taste of what's going on in the show. And so then I'm just going to show a couple of clips of some pieces of the show, so you can see the songs in action. No, so maybe I'll just turn it on. I clicked it. Double click? Oh, there we are. Cool. So this is us in rehearsal last week. And so I talked about how there's places where we use the sound and then we use shadow puppetry to tell the story. And then how it kind of transitions and you can hear the music and how we play with the words. So you can just see a little bit of this here in this clip. Sorry, my bad. This is it's another part of the show. It's called Back Down the Road. It's a travel song. So you can just kind of hear and see us kind of doing the thing in the journey. Okay, all right. So, oh, here it is, okay. So this is what I was talking about, the tornado section, yeah, so let's see, it'll come up. And then I'll have just a few, there it is. Let's try that again. Oh, that's weird.
Thinking. Okay.
All right, we'll pivot. We'll pivot. Let's see. Yeah, I don't know what's happening. So you're not really seeing the thing, so we're gonna just not show that clip. We'll move on. I just sent you an email and it has a couple of they're right there, and that'll be it. Yeah, cool.
Insist I must again. We have a better spot. Oh,
This was at La Mama in November.
Here we go again. We must see eye to eye. I can't do this on my own. I may complain, but I'm by your side. New job with lots of proof, and no one to hold my hand. Deep right, getting old. This all feels new. Back down the road. Come on, Adrian. Back down the road. The long ways. Back down the road. Stairs? There's stairs? What is there? Back down the road. My legs weren't built for this. Back down the road. Watch a sec. Water. Insist I
All
must
right,
again.
and then I have one last clip, and then I'm done. I'm not sure which one it is, to be honest. Let's see. Is this the Awakening? Okay, and we have one last one.
Shallow breath as the south winds blow, blood dripping down past the brow of an innocent soul, dreams deferred, heartbeat stopped.
Thank you.
Down past the brow.
Bless you.
Actually, while she's getting that ready, I'm just gonna say we have two more shows. We have one today at 5 o'clock at the DeSable Black History Museum, and then tomorrow at 2 p.m., I believe. So you're looking for something to do. Yeah.
Oh, no. Watch it, Ma, please, no, Ma, please. Don't move too much from side to side, if you can help it, Ma, please.
I don't know, Michael. I don't know.
Do you want to stay, Ma? If you want to stay, then we can stay.
Oh, fuck it. Let's go.
Come on, let's sing. Oh, Ma. Come on, let's sing. Come on, let's sing. Let's go, Ma.
I don't know, Michael. Michael, be careful.
Yeah.
Ooh, the neighbors are watching. Look at them. Hello.
Don't move too much, Ma, please.
Okay, Michael, go to the left,
Right,
Michael.
but you
They
show
are
right.
the left,
Sorry, you
Michael.
showed the right.
You
Sorry,
and-
excuse.
Ooh, look at those gossipers watching from their windows. Hey, hello.
Always, Bolweni.
Tulu, potholes,
Oh,
Michael.
askis.
Tulu, no. Yay, Michael, the potholes.
Oh, sorry, Mama.
Tulu. Yay,
Oh,
Michael.
askis.
Speed limit,
There's the
Michael.
turn off,
Speed
Ma.
limit. Oh, no.
Took the shortest route past a devastated area around the old fuel storage, where the demolition of burnt-out buildings had only just begun.
They were not stopped. In fact, few of the people that they met at this early hour even spared them a glance, because stranger and stranger conveyances were emerging on the streets.
My mother was here yesterday. Am I in the wrong ward?
No, your mother passed away last night. We did all we could to save her, but she was too weak. We tried to call you, but you didn't leave a number.
Later, when there was no one about, he went downstairs to look for his mother. He could not find her, or else the door that led to her was locked. He climbed into a great wire cage containing soiled linen and slept there.
Can I climb on your back?
Whoa.
Wait,
Wait, Uncle is tired, man.
Take me, I'm a girl. I'm not
No, Uncle is very tired.
Okay, you go, Simpson.
Okay, I'll tell you what. One at a time, please.
Get up, Simpson.
Hey, Clinky, what did you eat? Yes,
Okay, me next.
Oh, okay, I said one at a time. Hey,
I'm
what got you, man?
up.
Oh, my goodness, oh, my goodness. Hey, oh, you're a swat. Hey. Oh, wait, careful. Clinky, move this side, Clinky. Hey, what's it about?
Thank you. I'm pleased we played that. I'd forgotten what we made there, but you got a good sense of the music and the different sounds, which we've been talking about, and a little bit of the film. It was important for me to add the film because we could see Michael on the landscape. It was a bit of a risk. Handspring has never done that before, put the puppets in the film as such on a landscape. And we got a sense of how far his journey was and his solitude. But also it was important for me because the puppet's so beautifully carved that in big spaces you could see that puppet from close up. So, yeah, thank you.
Okay, thanks to all of the panelists. I'm really excited to see the shows now. I hope you are as well. And in this portion of the symposium panel, we have time for questions from the audience. There's a microphone right down here, so if you would like to pose a question, please come forward and speak into the mic. Good, we have a taker right away.
All right, so I just wanted to ask, like, what attracted or inspired you to do, like, to use puppets, like, that's our art of puppetry?
Yeah, what attracted or inspired you to do puppetry?
It's sad, but I never think about puppetry. Sorry. It was more like I wanted to make a wall. This was my first idea because I was a trapeze artist and also a climber. So I was trying to find something in between. So the idea of the wall was always in my mind, to have a wall who can dance, speak, sing songs, and to create something, but also, like, even if it's puppet or whatever, my idea was to transmit something beautiful and to touch the people with something beautiful, not talk about death, not talk about terrible things. I was, like, my life was enough. I wanted to really go in that way, and the puppet idea of the wall moving started to be better than the people playing outside. Like the wall, because usually these days, for example, on the show, I'm looking through the holes. I'm looking the reaction of the public. I'm not looking the show. I'm just looking which moment the public are reacting and when not. And it's amazing, like the moment that the wall is moving, the people are almost more interesting. And so when I start to see these things, I was pushing more in that way. But it was not my idea, it was just happening. Thank you.
Thank you. I think a big thing that attracted me to puppetry was freedom, like the possibilities that it allowed me, the possibilities as a young artist, as a starting out artist with very little means, and also as a woman, as a young woman. Well, first of all, I think that I didn't have to choose between the different art forms that I loved and was invested in, like music and theater directing and design. And, when you're a puppeteer and when you make puppetry shows, you have to do everything or work with people that do, but it's a holistic experience, which means that you can also become whole in it. And then just, the practicalities, like I think growing up in a very strict classical music upbringing, I was like, I will never audition again. I can write my own roles, and I can actually play all the roles, and I can play all the genders, across ages, and a lot of us, I think, I've realized a lot of puppeteers, they don't like to be put in boxes, even though, our lives are in suitcases much of the time. But, we're like, we don't like being defined. And it's such a field that it's so, there's so much prejudice, about puppets. We all know, oh, I have a 5-year-old, maybe you can, we all live with this thing also. But I think it also keeps us in a way, sometimes we enter the mainstream, but it keeps us also in our own, and of course we want to branch out, we want more people to know about it. But also, I think this way, how do you say, there is a kind of truth in it, because we are also off, and it's kind of like cabaret, You know, you can say things as they are in cabaret. And in puppet, it gives you that freedom. You know, and I'm speaking also really, even politically, like puppetry and also maybe animation films. Like, you know, we've seen it in times of oppression, where even like in normal theater, you can't get away with certain things, you know, under certain dictatures, for example. But in puppetry, because we're kind of left alone, because it's like for children, then we can go really deep and hard and show things and share things. So I feel very privileged that I stumbled into this magnificent art form. Thank you.
I'm not gonna lie. As a child, it was very connected to kind of the American puppetry that we kind of know and love here. You know, through the Jim Henson Muppet stuff. As I grew older and kind of grew as a person and as an artist, that freedom, the possibility that the possibility that I could put all of my, it allows me to like put all of the things I want to do, and I can do them at the same time. I can use these. I use these characters to tell any kind of story that I want, and but also the idea that the kind of stories I wanted to tell, like with fantasy characters, and I think like we're in society where we are right now with like technology and the way they make films, and it's like it's so technologically advanced. I love the idea of trying to create that kind of magic on stage with creatures and on stage with puppets. Like animation, but like bringing it, kind of going back and seeing how much I can push the idea of those kind of stories, but with on stage.
Yeah, as I said, I come from a theatre background, not a puppetry background, and puppetry is not so big in South Africa. Of course, we have the Handspring Puppet Company, and we have some other companies, but not a lot. And I worked as assistant director many, many years ago on a Handspring production, one of their first productions, and we'd spoken for years about doing something together. So I always wanted to work with them. Specifically, and to do with the beauty of the puppet, the sculpture of how Adrian made these beautiful objects, and how we brought them alive. And I'd always been interested in object theatre and metaphor, very much from the time of protest theatre in South Africa, where we workshopped and where we created plays quickly. And worked with the actors on creating the production. So a lot of what you saw now, I workshopped visually, like the drowning of the goat, the reaction to the mother's death. We workshopped that in the rehearsal room. So, yeah, and also the detail, because I'm a theatre director, just engaging in that detail was wonderful for me. And then having 3 actors, puppeteer actors, imbuing this one object with many layers of emotion and nuance was a privilege for me to direct.
I remember the word I was looking for about puppetry before. It's subversive. Yes, I got it. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, great. We have another question. Come on up.
Sure. What I'd like to find out, I was advised once that one must fabricate the puppet and then the plot comes. But I come from a writing and a film background, theater background. What are your thoughts on that? How do you develop your pieces or devise your pieces?
So it's Jackie, right?
Yes.
Jackie was asking, what's your process? Do you create the puppet first, or do you get the story and then build the puppet to perform the story?
Yes, in my case, I create the scenography first. And I didn't know what to do with that. So first I tried to make videos and like a stop motion. It didn't work. Also, I never created a story before. I always make costumes and scenography, and then after I work a lot with improvisations. And there the stories come slowly after.
I think I've learned that very important is that each show has its own wish and desire and needs. And so, and not to even give myself like a kind of pattern that I fall into, because sometimes you find an object and that can be an inspiration for the show. And sometimes, you know, you begin with the story or you begin with a piece of music. Like I've learned that for every show, the inspiration is different, the process is also different, you know, what things magnetize towards. And so not to try to recreate what I've done before. Oh, I had the plot, and then I made the puppets, and then like falling into any of these, no, you have to sense what this specific work and what this specific story and partners need. And not be afraid to change the puppets. Like, you know, sometimes I've spoken about this after the show, that we you know, we put half of our budget into making the puppet, and we know it's not quite there, but, you know, maybe we don't have any more, and we've spent all that energy, and, you know, and we're like convincing ourselves that it's good enough. Most of the time it's not, when you feel like that. And so you have to keep looking for the right, you know, the right material, the right size, the right dimensions. Maybe you have to make it all over again. Maybe you have to make all of them over again. So keeping that also very flexible until the end. And even after you premiere, sometimes I redesign elements in the show after I've understood more things. Thanks.
Yes, similarly, yeah, it's whatever's the story, it depends on the project, it depends on the story. If there's a story that hits me and I'm like, oh, that's a story I want to tell, and then I figure out like, okay, this is the kind of puppetry I want to use to tell that story. Sometimes, in the case of this show, I built a puppet of the first version of him, talking about, you know, you continue to figure out what works for the character as you continue to work on the piece. And so I built it as just a 48-hour film festival submission film. And selfishly just wanted to build a Scarecrow puppet. And then after doing that process, I had the puppet sitting there, and through the pandemic and then through the Black Lives Matter movement, that's when that kind of story hit me as I just looked at it and had that thought. And so then that kind of infused the rest of the way I had to tell the story and informed the way I had to tell the story. And so as the process continued, then it was like, okay, what kind of characters are gonna be now involved in this story? What do they look like? Each of them are built different based on the capabilities that we need them to serve the story. But yeah, it just depends for me.
Yeah, so this was based on a novel, as I said. So the story was already there. The characters were there. And by the time I started the second draft of the adaptation, Adrian had started to carve the puppets. So there was a process where we got together and decided what they would look like. And questions that Adrian asked me were, what do you need the puppet to do? So of course that, you know, dictates how the puppet is made. So I needed him to run, to crouch, to swim, to kill a bird, all practicalities of the functioning of the puppet. And dramaturgically, I always write the text first, but then in the room, there's a lot of improvisation from the artist in the room.
Great. Do we have another question? Yes, please. Come on up.
Yes, if I may. I had in mind a specific question for Yael, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, sorry. But maybe of a more general issue. And first, I have to acknowledge those comments by you and some others that puppetry and animated film had a specific niche in socio-political, socio-cultural milieu and discourse, and with my background I can testify to that. That's very true. So a specific question, I haven't seen your Edith show, but I've seen and wrote about the first one here in the program.
The House by the Lake.
Yes, House by the Lake. What was striking for me, especially over there, just the choice of the type of puppets. What I used to call Tantamaresque. Though when talked to one of your associates after the show, I just found out that this term is not familiar, probably we're different in terms in this tradition. So what, maybe you can elaborate about the choice of these puppets, number one, and number two, closer to our today's topic, since Tantamaresque are kind of masks in reverse, if you will, right? And you already talked, and some others also, as masks and some devices can abstract or define or change your voice management, if you will, and sound management, all this stuff. So what was going on with the voices and sounds and tones in this particular show, and maybe generally? Depending on the puppets.
In which show? In the
House by the Lake. I haven't seen, unfortunately,
Yes.
Edith yet.
Yeah.
Maybe
Well,
I'll have a chance to see it.
In the House by the Lake, this whole production is a very good example of directing through design. And we kind of had, I always think that in the creation process, you're blindfolded, and, for a very long time, you just have to accept not knowing, which is, big trick. And in this kind of production, I mean, the visual language started with one of my teachers, Hadassah Frat. He just came one day, and he gave me two huge garbage bags with these old dolls, and they were all broken. And, we just started playing with them and, connecting these our heads to, putting our feet and, kind of like the meeting point of the human figure and the doll, and which is the meeting point of life and death, and we really kind of developed and played around with this visual language. And then at the other point was like my kind of wish and my partner's wish in the creation, Yara Goldring, to touch upon like the untouchable, which was like the story of children hiding in the Holocaust, and the impact of war, and then we also chose to tell the story of children, also because we were inspired by talking to Holocaust survivors that were children at the time, and they talked to us about the impact of like the blanket that they had, or maybe a toy that a doll that they had, and that kind of how they managed to, just through the tangible force of like holding this thing to keep on, to stay alive for years. And so that's why we decided to have for each sister a doll, and to have these 3 dolls. And then as the show, so our kind of rationale in the directing through puppetry was that as the show goes by, as the time passes, and as things become darker and the hunger grows and it becomes more and more cold, then their fantasy world also becomes more extreme. And then they become themselves like the dolls. Parts of them are alive, and some parts of them are already in another realm. So, and like the breaking apart of your, of your life, of your inner world. So maybe that can answer you a little bit.
Yes, I think the term for the type of puppet that has a human face and a puppet body is a humanette. Okay. Do we have another question from the floor? I see people moving. No, they're leaving. It's time? I have 11:51, which means we have 9 minutes if we want to continue the conversation. Thank you. Come on up.
Hi. Thank you very much for all of this insight. I notice with the world of puppets that there's so much thinginess and materiality that I find just really wonderful and missing from the CGI world. I don't know if I really have a question. I just would love, I'm an art teacher, and I would love if you have any ideas of ways to get kids more back into manipulating objects, materials, rather than always drawing on the computer and just making videos. Thanks.
Does this work? Well, I do have a background in education, it's specifically teaching theater and art. So I think that, really what I have utilized is just unconventional materials, making them work together to bring this thing, to build this thing, giving them the simple materials, butcher paper of some kind, tape, things from the dollar store, and then allowing them to create this thing, but then being like, okay, you created this thing, now you have to work together in these groups to manipulate this, bring it to life, and then, to give them kind of the full experience is what I do will be like, someone go online, choose some music, so you can get the full experience of like, okay, there's sound and moving to the sound and you're creating this world. And then I had lights in the room, so okay, now choose the light so that you're getting that full experience, kind of pushing them into it, but still allowing them to be creative throughout the process. And then you're teaching them things like teamwork, and really using their brains in a tactile way that's so different from this. So that's something that I do, yeah.
I think it's very natural for children. I mean, if you think how children play with dolls and give them voices, or toys, dogs, cats. I suppose it's the older kids, once they get sort of 11, 12, 13, they don't want to do that anymore, but then maybe that could be replaced by something more specific and creative, like a puppet.
I don't know what to say. Just put out the computers and phones, and they will create something good,
Okay, I am curious to know from Paula how long it took to create the wonderful scene for your show.
Now it's already 8 years that I'm working with that.
It took you 8 years to make that?
It's not finished. It's always growing and growing and growing. And we have more. The thing that we bring here, it's only one part. And I have also another one, everything on white. And it's always work. It's growing and growing. And also the idea is changing, and the show is changing because the scenography is changing, and it's developing always, never stop.
Great. Do any of the panelists have questions for each other? We have 5 minutes.
I'll just say, I don't have a question, but it's just been lovely to just sit here and really take it all in and hear everybody's process and hear everybody's stories and their creativity. That's very inspiring.
Yes, if I can request from the festival for next year to arrange it that we can see each other's shows when you make the planning would be. I think this is really something, when you come to these festivals. I mean, I've had shows that for maybe in the last 7 years, we are many times in the same festivals. We always play in the same times. Yeah, we know that feeling. Yeah.
Okay, there's one person down at the mic. I think he's going to get the last word. Come on.
I just wanted to ask, first of all, thank you so much for all of your
wise words and just your incredible work. Also, I just wanted to know, when do you think that that your work is finished? I think as artists, it's hard to pull the plug and be like, we did it, we're done. But when do you pull that plug? And if you do, and if you don't, how do you continue to evolve an idea past its initial birth point, if that makes sense?
In my case, never. Really, never. It's like every day I'm looking, it's like, oh, I need to change that part, you know, and it's like, it's not ready. And it's the same when the people wanted to make videos, you know, or write something about this story, and it's like, I cannot because it's not finished, you know. And now it's almost 3 years that we are playing the same show, and all the time I'm thinking like, it's not finished. I don't know if I like the end of the show. Maybe I can change it. And there is one part of the scene that I'm always thinking, maybe it's too early to show this, and it must be at the end, and I need to change. And it's like, really, I'm always thinking that it can be better. Yeah. Can be better and better and better. And it's, I think like, it's not the only show, it's always happened to me. Mm-hmm. Like even when I was painting, you know, and you need to put your name at the end because it's finished, my painting was never with name because I always feel like it's not finished, can be better, you know. Yeah.
No, I'm exactly the same, and I drive the performers crazy because it's never finished, and you're always looking. We've done so many performances, and script-wise, you can always tighten or, you know, add more, or so it's kind of finished, but it's not finished.
Right. And then I think going along with that, you know, I think the great thing about being creatives and that, you know, and creating your own work is that you once it seems like that piece is done, it's not like goodbye. It's more like, cool, let me just put this on the shelf, and then maybe I'll be able to come back around to that work again later, and then it'll be informed by that experience that I've had, and then maybe something new will come from it.
Also, for me, never finished. And after last night's show of Edith and Me, I was like, okay, I'm going to change some text here. I'm going to move this around. I don't know about this. I have to tell the sound technicians to wait. Like, it's always evolving. I have a tendency, like, to direct the show, and then after the premiere, I cut off 10 or 15 minutes. It's really like, I'm just like, argh. I really try to see, okay, what is necessary, and I find that that squeeze is really, really important. And sometimes you need someone from the outside to be like, gotta cut the babies here and this, but also someone once told me something really wise. She said, Yael, you don't have to solve all the problems in the same show. So, thank you so much. Thank you.
We're right at time. Thank you so much. If you have a question, you can ask.
It wasn't a question. I just wanted to thank all of them. I also work in puppetry, and I'm really inspired by. So I just wanted to thank you guys. I work in puppetry as well, and I come from Florida, and I wanted to see what it looks like nowadays. And I just wanted to thank you guys for inspiring and all your insight and keeping the art of puppetry alive. So thank you.
Okay. And there we are. Thank you.